Well, welcome everyone to the Evolving Man podcast. I'm the founder of the Awakened Man and your host, Alan Devon. So listen, many of us have gone through a lot of process of goal setting, haven't we? We figured out the things that were value to us in life. We've determined our goals and our milestones. And just as we're getting ready to achieve those goals, we sabotage ourselves. And it is in these hidden patterns, among other things, that we're going to get into today, as my guest has spent 20 years working in the personal development business as a consciousness coach for men. But before we get into all that, I just want to remind you of our brotherhood, the Band of Brothers. This is our group mentoring program where strong, resilient men get together and work on themselves, but also on helping other men grow to be better men in their lives. And while that's getting some phenomenal results, gentlemen, if you're really interested in raising the levels that you show up as a husband, a father, an entrepreneur, then I encourage you to participate in our Heroes Quest. It's a 90-day mentoring program that's guaranteed to raise the level that you show up in any aspect of your life. And where can you find all this information? We can find it at the Awakened Man Training Academy at members, that's plural, members.theawakenedman.net. And with that, let's get on with today's show.
Today's man knows who he is, where he stands, and what he aspires to become. Solid in his convictions, owner of his destiny, ever evolving into husbands and fathers our wives and children expect and deserve. We are the masters of our life and the leaders of our homes and community. Welcome to the movement. Stay strong, my brother.
Well, as customary in my podcast, we like to ask a couple of questions just to set the stage for us so we get our heads wrapped around our conversation today. And so the first question I have for you is, are you aware of the self-sabotaging patterns that are affecting your life and your success? And do you have a strategy that eliminates these patterns? And regardless of how you've answered those questions, my guest today is Chris Plourde, and he's going to give us some insight in what he has found to be successful strategies in eliminating these hidden patterns that are holding us back from living life at the highest levels. Now, Chris is a Los Angeles-based consciousness performance coach, consultant, speaker, and mind-body instructor with over 20 years of experience, as I said earlier. He's also worked with and coached with well-known companies such as Walt Disney, Equinox, the YPO, that's the Young Presidents Organization, Chapters, and many more. Chris has mentored and consulted with celebrities, business executives, top fitness professionals, and military special ops personnel. And as a former chief executive with men's teams and organizations, he's mentored many men to find their authentic self and create leadership qualities that they can bring to their families, communities, and businesses. So welcome to the show, Chris. How are things today?
Things are great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to see you here, my friend. So, as I was talking about in the introduction there, one of the things I talk a lot about with my men's work is having a hero's journey, or we call it a hero's quest. And so I was wondering if you could share today what yours was all about and your experience and how that shaped you and how you've got to doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, no. Thanks. Yeah, I grew up, I'm in Los Angeles now, but I grew up on the East Coast in the States, just south of Boston, very kind of blue collar-ish town. Masculine men was the perception. I myself was a really sensitive kid, super sensitive to the point where, I thought there was something wrong with me, and I think as boys in elementary school growing up, you see all these masculine figures around you. It was like, there's something going on here. I need therapy. I need help, because I was just, crying at the drop of a hat. And so I began my quest, so to speak, of becoming this burying those emotions and feelings and becoming this, what I thought was the ideal man, right? Athlete, wanted to get a degree in business, worked for all these companies, didn't really get a chance to really connect or feel my emotions. I was constantly going, and achieving what I thought was success, but then realizing, getting into these companies, that I was not happy. I was not fulfilled, and even though, the outside world might go, yeah, he's doing great. Well, when it comes down to looking in the mirror, there was something off. So as I moved through these different companies, I'd always have this this way of coaching and working with people in the fitness industry and working for, that was my calling, but I didn't see it. I wasn't allowing myself to see it because I had this preconceived programming that I needed to pursue something different. And so I allowed myself to when I finally allowed myself to feel and get real, that's when the gates started opening up, the heart started opening up. And I started realizing that what I was meant to do was always right here underneath me. And that's what I did, and now as a father of 2, a husband of 16 years, I pursued men's organization. I walked in one day because I wanted to be a better father, a better husband. And lo and behold, I saw men, which I was like, what's going on here? These men have so many problems, right? When I first walked in. But what I soon realized is that they were sharing authentically their challenges that they were going through. They were allowing their feelings to come out so that they didn't have to hold them anymore. They allowed themselves to feel for the first time. And then I got a chance to witness that and experience myself. And that's when the path to freedom started beginning for me.
Wow, man, that is so powerful. I just, my heart goes out to you. I think that's just so important for men, that we learn how to express our emotions. And actually, the month of January, our theme for the month was focusing on our core emotions, happiness, joy, anger, fear, and happiness, and the challenges with guys that we don't know how to express our feelings very well. And until we get into a room with other men, do we actually learn how to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's so powerful that that you were able to discover that. Now, you had a couple other life-changing experiences, I'll suggest, and in doing a little bit of research. Now, you grew up in an environment where your father was an alcoholic, right? And so what did you learn and take away from that experience, and how did that shape your life and your journey?
Right. I didn't realize that my father at the time was an alcoholic. He was very functioning. He was a good man, great man. He's still alive today. He's just a huge heart. The problem, the thing that I realized later is that he was drinking. He was going through what he was going through. But what I came to terms with was he had a rough childhood himself. He lost a mother at a young age. He was the only child. His father basically just, handed him money in order to raise him. And he didn't know how to deal with his emotions, his feelings, right? He didn't have that outlet. Nobody showed him that it's okay. And then he got another blow. We all did later in life when I lost a younger sister. We all did, and then again, what do you do as a man? How do you express this? Who do you connect with? And so, I got to a point when, was there anger and disappointment? Sure. But I got to a point where I was able to see, he's ready when he's ready. If he chooses this path, that's his path. I can still love him. I can still thank him for being the man he is, because I'm the man I am today. He taught me lessons, not just directly, but indirectly, I choose not to bury my emotions. I choose to take care of myself, and I could see the effects of not doing that. So yes, I still see it. I deal with it. I love him for it. And the trigger is no longer there because I was able to look deep inside myself and realize that that's my work I need to do. And he's got to do his work when he's ready. And I give him that option whenever he's ready.
Yeah, that is so awesome, Chris. The idea of, and how many of us men carry a father wound like that, and we don't address it, and we tend to look outside and look at him and say it's his fault for the way I am. And at some aspect, there might be true to a small portion, but it's really our work to do, and that's right. Really with the foundation of the men's work that you do, isn't it? About helping men really do that work and do it well.
Right. Yeah. He was placed here for me, not to me. Right. And I think that's the whole aspect, is looking at those situations that have happened, or those people that have come into our lives, whether we liked them or not, and said, what are you here to teach me? What are you here to how can I grow from this situation? And when we can reframe that perspective, I think your entire life just opens up. It stops going in this tunnel vision. You start to open up to the possibilities of now, how can I truly serve? How can I be fulfilled? How can I be successful and happy? And all of those things go along with that.
Absolutely, man. That's awesome. So listen, I think you started out in the fitness industry, didn't you? Were you doing coaching in there, and then you moved over to performance coaching? Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and how you went through those two?
Yeah, for sure. I finally, when I finally said, okay, I'm not supposed to be doing corporate. Now, some people are, and that's cool. And there's some great companies and a lot of things I learned. And I fully immersed myself in the fitness world. I was fortunate enough to not only work with some great clients here around Los Angeles and teach some amazing classes and connect to a beautiful community, but I was able to travel around the world presenting and working for various companies, certifying instructors and doing workshops and so on. And so as I was doing that, I developed these different, working at different conferences, I developed these different material that I would present. So my own materials. And what I soon realized is that the material wasn't just about instructors and trainers and everything, which I thought at the time I was developing for. It was developing human performance. It reached all areas of life. And so one day, one of my clients was asking, can you work with my company? I think you could really benefit, my sales team could benefit from you. So I did. I worked with some of the executives and the whole sales team, presented a couple times on the same material. And then I started working with them one-on-one. And within like 3 months, we had a 30% increase in sales and the highest volume that they've ever had in 28 years. And it wasn't about talking about money. It was talking about how they went through their day. We talk about all areas of their life. Some were completely burnt out. Some were pleasing as opposed to serving their client, right? We're getting thrown around like a pinball as opposed to creating a game plan, a map. And so I got a chance to help them do that, and then started working with one-on-one companies, different teams, different organizations. And, it really unfolded beautifully. Then I got into, I was doing meditation and I started teaching breath work, and it just, all these different modalities and tools fell in my lap. And now I'm fortunate enough to be able to do it again, or do this for my entire life. It's a really, really cool occupation. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So this is really the genesis, and you've moved this into performance coaching. So Tell a little bit more about that, and how does this performance coaching synchronize with the men's work that you do?
Yeah. So, I'll start with the second one first. Sure. Being in the men's organization I was in for 14 years, not only did we get an opportunity just to be in circles, but we got an opportunity to go through leadership development. I was able to create some leadership platform where they got to go through certain kinds of training. Mentoring, different weekends that we did. We've been a part of 5 different men's initiation weekends, and not only participated, but also was able to lead them as well. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool. But then looking at it as a performance coach, we would take care of all the areas of life, right? It wasn't just one. I break it up into 5 different ones. We look at personal, of course, relationships with ourselves and others, spirituality, professional, health and wellness, and financial. And you look at the 5 of those, and if one of them is out of balance, then something's going to be affected. So we work really hard on looking at all those areas and trying to get them as true as possible so that we're elevating at a really super high level in our lives. So that's kind of the gist of performance coaching, not just about how you run a race, but how you get up each day, how you perform in all areas, how the relationships are with your kids, your wife, your friends, your community. Are you giving back? Are you in service? That's the act of performance, I think.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that mindset. It is a holistic view of our lives, isn't it? It's not just one piece. We just can't take the one slice out of that pie and say, well, I just want to work on my relationships. And while that can be very powerful and important, it encompasses everything. And I think that's an amazing strategy, and is one that'll work well for sure. So we started to talk a little bit about your men's work. And then the other thing I know, I was looking at for some of and getting ready for today, I noticed that there were some discoveries that you went through and some strategies that you came up with this coaching practice for men. And I wonder if you could touch on a little bit on the mindfulness stuff, letting go of guilt and shame, and then what happens when we accept things in our life. And if you don't mind touching on that, we'll start maybe with mindfulness, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. The mindfulness aspect of it, I started taking yoga back in college when I was still playing football, and I just realized how hard that was. I'd always hit the weights and do all the hard, intense workouts. But, when it came down to slowing down, what yoga taught me and still teaches me to this day, 26 years later, is to connection with your body, your mind, your spirit, and how important the breath and how important that is to unlocking whatever is inside you. So today, yes, do I still work out? Sure. But I want to be as open as I can. Right. And that's what yoga really helps me do, to stay calm within my body, right? In an intense situation, when things are burning, when things are intense, how do you find that calm within that chaos? And so that's what yoga allowed me to discover throughout the years. And then that led me to meditation. I really started teaching meditation to the men, 14 years ago, and that quietness, that stillness within ourselves, the focusing on the moment of the breath, realizing that we have, 70,000 thoughts that come into our brain. And the whole point of getting stronger, more emotionally fit, understanding is seeing a thought, but then bringing it back to the what's inside us, right? Like the touch of our fingers, the hearing of our breath, the feeling of the sensations within our body. I think it's really powerful and important for all of us to pursue that. It's not going to mean it's going to be really easy to do if you haven't done it before, but that act of sitting still really brings up so much beauty within us. And I think that's where all the answers is in this deep well of knowledge we already have. People are searching outside. But when we can trust ourselves and understand all those things that we went through and happened again for us exist within us, and all we have to do is listen to the whispers that are already there. And then there's breath work, which is, a powerful way to really get rid of stuck emotions, right? They say the issues are in the tissues. Mm-hmm. And that's one of my favorite things I get to teach right now and incorporate into my trainings is breath work, because there's so much emotion that comes up, so many realizations that surface for people if they stick with it and they're actually able to breathe on a deep, deep level. So you get that oxygen and CO2 moving through the body, and wow, it just, the release that happens, even if you don't know what you're getting released, that there's that opportunity to feel your feelings. And this is a really great tool to help that move along. And when you can commit to a practice of that breath work for a consistent period of time, then life can really shift in beautiful ways for you.
Absolutely. So, I like so much how your, the thought of slowing down to speed up, yeah, to be more efficient, to really be in tune with what's happening with ourselves. And between breath work and meditation, for sure, I have a very consistent meditation practice in the morning and not as much in the evening. I do a little something different for the evening. I like to finish off with reading, but that's a form of meditation, I guess. But breath work has been really seems to be the cutting edge now for men's work, isn't it?
For
really
sure.
Getting in there to helping us understand and be with our feelings and be present. Yeah. Isn't that really what you're getting at?
100%. And it's, it's not just in men's work. They're using it with, military special ops, Navy SEALs, and they're training now. Think about, when you talk about performance, right? You're putting them in a very stressful situation. And they want to make sure that there's no triggers or anything coming up. So that's why they're using it. So think about a CEO or, stress at home. This is enabling you to work on yourself first so that you can really trust your heart and your instincts in order to get you where you need to go in life, right? In order to make those right decisions, instead of basing them off of fear, we get to base them off of something much more powerful. And that's that right brain type of sage or Jedi way of being, right? And that's where we want to start operating from, not the reverse, not the other.
Yeah, 100%, my friend, 100%. So the last piece there I just wanted to touch on is that, so you'd mentioned also about something that happens to us when we start to accept things in our life. And what have you found about that when we start to accept things? What shifts for us?
Yeah. Acceptance is the hardest thing to do, but it's the one we must do first, right? Yes, I know people are like, I want to get here. When I do this, I want to make this much money. I don't have any now, but I want to, you want to lose weight. You got to step on the scale. You got to find what your base is first. Yeah. Accepting where you're at in this moment, right? Looking at the gifts of where you are, the lessons of where you are right now, first and foremost is the most important step, right? Then we get to formulate that game. Doesn't mean you have to stay there, but it's being in this moment of where you're at, and unfortunately, so many people they reach rock bottom before they can really get to that place, but you don't necessarily have to reach that rock bottom where everything falls out from underneath you. And unfortunately, too many people do that. But it's like, what is it in your life that you're not looking at? What emotion is not surfacing right now that keeps surfacing, that you keep pushing down? What are you running away from? And can we just stand up in our power and our courage and say, yes, this is where I'm at. And now I'm going to accept where I am and move forward from there.
Outstanding. Absolutely. That's such great information. I just love that part. Listen, the other question I talk about, and I've been married, you said 16 years, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
correct.
16 years. Now, so what is the key to true spiritual partnership in marriage, my friend?
Yeah. Well, I think it became that for us. It was now it's a spiritual partnership, right? Because we look at our souls now, at first it was just like, oh, I like this person. Oh, I like you. Let's hang out. Let's fall in love. Let's have some babies. I love you. You're awesome. But then it became, how is this person's soul helping me grow, evolve, right? How are we able to see and learn from one another, right? When somebody needs a light, loving nudge, to get to the next level, what does that look like? Or are we able to really be honest with each other? If something's coming up that's bugging the other person, can we really talk about it? And I think that honest communication is key. Right. I know in the men's work, we learn how to work with the feminine. The masculine learns how to work with the feminine, understanding how to integrate that feminine into our way of being so that we can hold that space for her or your partner who's in their feminine to do that dance, to do whatever they need to do in order to be in that creative space. And so it takes a lot of work to understand how to do that. And I work with couples too, that, the man comes home. I actually had this happen today, just on a side story. And he's like, he sold his company and he said, I'm buying this car and it's going in the garage, which is like the kids' playroom or gym or something like that. Like completely just like lambast. She's like, they had a fight for 2 days over the demanding of it. I think it's understanding how to communicate and enroll in a proper way, and not just come in and, pound your chest and say, this is the way it's going to be, right? Understanding what your context truly is, right? I know men might say certain things, but their underlying context is not that energy they're holding. And so when we can master our context, again, that's that understanding our emotions. Yeah. That's when we get an opportunity to really be in this, like you said, like that spiritual partnership with someone so that we can evolve and grow and really have this loving, fulfilling life in our personal areas. So,
yeah, that is so powerful. And I love that story as well, right? Because as you're telling it, I was sitting there thinking, what is the intention? That way, if that was me, what would be my intention there? What hurt am I trying to resolve? Right. And so it's great. It's great coaching you're providing for this gentleman to have him help understand the underlying pieces of that context, because it is, right? And as we move, and as our marriages move along, and while the fire still burns hot like it did in the beginning, it burns in a different way.
Yes.
And when it burns from a spiritual grounding as opposed to a physical, not that the physical is gone, it's just that it's more sustaining when it's a spiritual fire, in my opinion.
I heard somebody said one time that you have two marriages in your life, right? And they don't necessarily have to be from different people, right? It's the same. It could be from the same one. It's what you choose, because if you don't look at it with this first marriage and you start looking at yourself, right, as opposed to the other one, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, then it's not. You will end up in a divorce or a separation, or whatever the case may be. But when you can start to really look at your own self work, then that second marriage becomes your spiritual partner, as opposed to just your regular partner.
100%, buddy. 100%. So tell me a little bit about journey work. I know we talked about a journey's quest, a hero's journey and that, but tell me a little bit about journey work and the work that you do in your men's work and in your performance coaching. What's that all about?
So this is plant medicine based work. So in communities where, getting together, even our men's teams sometimes do this work together. And the idea of plant medicine, depending on which one you pursue, right? And again, I think the setting in which you do plant medicine and who you have facilitate it is so vital, that sacred space. But what the plants allowed me to see is this intelligence and this connection that it throughout the world, right? Throughout each human. It allowed my ego to dissolve and for me to see things in a really simple, slow way, to connect with my wife on a deeper level than I've ever connected with her before, to see a trigger that might come up with somebody and go, what is that unresolved issue that I'm not seeing? To connect to remove the veil, essentially, and to open up your heart like it's never been opened before. And, this work for us has been, and again, it's not for everybody, but I know it's also allowed some people to heal from depression, PTSD, so many other ways. And it's an entire night of doing this work, but it lasts for weeks and sometimes months from that one night. So the messages keep coming through and the ideas and the synchronicities start to flow in this really beautiful way. I could get into more details if we're going there, but, it's just the different kinds of medicine or whatever we use. But, essentially it's about doing some deeper work on yourself and really seeing the connection to the earth and to other humans.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's phenomenal. I have done a little bit of research on it. I'm not that familiar. So it is something that maybe we get into another podcast and we focus on that work, and because it's so interesting and it has picked up some steam now, and there's lots of benefit for it. And I would love to get to dive a little deeper with you in another podcast.
For sure. And by the way, breath work, when I took breath work for the first time, I was like, that is as close to a journey that I've ever been in. So there's similarities from doing breath work and the plant medicine as well.
Cool. So, right on. Mm-hmm. So listen, you've learned a lot of stuff along their way. You must have come across a few teachers that really inspired you or you learned a lot from. Tell us a little bit about some of these teachers and that you followed.
Wow. I mean, there's just so many little bits and pieces. I always used to look at this. I'm going to go off to the side for a second, but I always used to look at it and go, I want a mentor. And I don't know if I've ever had just a deliberate one exact mentor. People have mentored me, but there's bits and pieces of everybody that I think I'm able to call from, and I think it started in high school with, my first, graphic art teacher who, got me into college, basically his old alma mater, and was able to, pursue and give without wanting anything back. He just wanted to do that. And that was like Mr. Peck, and then seeing some other amazing friends and connections that built businesses, and how did they do that? And then others in the fitness industry that or in the athletic industry that became these, incredible dynamic athletes, so and how did they do that? Right. And the systems that they use and the work that they did on themselves to dive in, I think has been remarkable to see. Of course, the thousands of books that I've read where I'm just like, I'd love to sit down and pick your brain for an hour or two, so.
Outstanding. So listen, what does freedom mean to you? You've come a long way. You're doing some men's work, you're doing performance coaching, but really in the end, what does freedom mean and look like to you?
Yeah. Freedom it's an inside job. It's what we get to do when we wake up on a Monday morning and you got a big smile on your face because you know about what the week is ahead. When you get to go and take a trip, with the family, when you feel more emotions within yourself and love those emotions as opposed to try to bury those things, when the fight stops and the dance continues, I think that's what freedom is. It's looking at yourself in the mirror, looking at yourself in your soul, in your eyes, and going, man, I love that, man. Like, I really, truly am proud of the work you've been doing. And I'm proud of how you handled all these challenges that came into your life. It's looking at the people around you and going, I love this community. I love these teachers that I get to be with every single day. And when you look at life and you go, look at it's all happening for me. And there's so many gifts that I get to say yes to. I think when we can look at life as opposed to and get rid of the problems and accept the challenges, that's freedom.
Outstanding. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for spending time with us here today. And we unpacked quite a bit. And I think we're able to shed some light on how men can break free from these sabotaging behaviors. And so I'm wondering, what's the best way for the audience to reach out and get a hold of you? And are there any programs that they can get involved with you? Just
sure.
How they do that?
Great. Thank you. My email, my website is chrisplourde.com. Instagram is at Coach Chris Plourde. And, essentially I do teach some online breathwork classes. You can join me. You can check all those on my website. I got some programs coming out, different recorded workshops like setting boundaries for optimal success, owning your story. So those will be available to you very soon. And then one-on-one coaching. If you're looking just to have a discovery call to see what that could look like, I'd be happy to do that, for your listeners, and they can find all that through my website as well.
Well, outstanding. And I'll be sure to put all that information in the show notes there, so we'll have quick access to get a hold of Chris. Chris, I want to thank you once again for being on the podcast. It was a fantastic interview. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really nice meeting you.
Thank you for listening to the Evolving Man podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.